Hello, everyone. Logan Hertz here with Hazeltine LLC. We have back the man, the myth, the legend, the newly married Denzel Rodriguez. Denzel, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm a happy married man, just a few months in. Very excited to be here. It's been just under a year, I want to say, since we last did some content together. So it's
Way too
awesome to
long,
get
man.
back.
It
And
felt
I
like
just
10
want to,
years. It felt like
I want
10
to,
years.
I want to recognize the work that you're doing
Oh,
in
thank
the
you.
space on YouTube. Since
Thank
the
you.
time that I first found you, you only had so many videos. You didn't have a lot of content. And so in just a short span of time, you've been really putting out a lot of material, not just short clips or little reels, but like 30 1 hour content that people can really dive in, learn all about the financial strategies that we teach, that we're trying to help people really grasp the full context of each strategy, when to apply it, when not to apply it, when does it fit, when does it not fit, and just recognize these as tools that you can have in your pocket that you're not going to use a hammer for everything. You're not going to use a screwdriver for everything. But when you need a screwdriver, it solves that one specific role versus a hammer. And I like to teach my clients that way when it comes to financial strategies. When you come across something, we don't need to just ignore it because someone said it was a scam or that it's bad or it won't work, but rather let's just
They don't call it a
try it.
scam, do they,
Right.
Denzel? No one actually calls it a scam, do they?
No, no, right?
No, of course not. Of
Just
course not.
they're
It's
just
funny
they're
because
just
it seems like every great asset was viewed as a scam when it first came out, and every great inventor was viewed as crazy, insane
crazy or
when he
wild. Yep.
first came out. So I take that as a compliment, honestly. If I'm not
I
being
do.
called a scam artist, then I'm probably not thinking creatively enough.
I agree with that. It's a reminder that you're not being as bold or you're not being as loud if you're not getting those hater trolls coming after you day in and day out. When you start to hear that fizzle out, just remind yourself of the purpose that you have and
Right.
remember
It's
the
how
Lord
truth
is
tellers,
gracious.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's
When you
like
bring the truth,
we're
people don't want the truth unless it's a totally mundane truth like 2 plus 2 equals 4. This is a whole another topic of conversation. Maybe we can have a therapy session, Denzel, because I was completely unprepared for the level of vitriol and just absolute, unadulterated, spewing venomous hatred that came my way for just talking about infinite banking and velocity banking. I was not prepared for it. I don't know what kind of person gets so angry over someone proposing a different financial strategy. I was
yeah.
completely unprepared for that. And so I want to encourage people out there, if you do get that sort of vitriol, don't be discouraged by it. It's paradoxically probably a good sign. It shows that people take you seriously. It shows that you've hit on something real when someone has a violent reaction. And I was not prepared for it. And I still struggle with it. I'll be honest. I'm a very sensitive, emotional person. I am a
Hmm.
melancholic according to the 4 temperaments, and melancholics are very sensitive people. We don't show a lot of emotion, but we feel it very deeply. Plus,
Okay.
because of all my health challenges, I'm always in a very fragile mental, emotional, physical state that makes it more difficult for me to handle these things than I normally would. And that could be a whole nother episode that I think will be helpful for maybe entrepreneurs and business owners, people who are struggling with that. Maybe is not for the general audience. But with all that said, what I wanted to talk about today is something I've become known for, which is the importance of securing your full human life value with convertible term life insurance. We talk a lot about whole life insurance, which is phenomenal. We talk a lot about infinite banking and becoming your own banker, which is phenomenal. We don't talk about really what should be the prerequisite, what gives you the ability and the guarantee to do that and protects your whole family, because that death benefit protection is really important. And convertible term life insurance belongs in the same category with whole life insurance. It's not just term, it's convertible term. So I've been creating a lot of content about that lately. And Denzel, I wanted to get your thoughts on the importance and the value of convertible term life insurance.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'll just give y'all the visual here. And
I
this is
love the
something I do on
whiteboard.
my yeah,
Whiteboards.
this is something I do on my videos all the time is I start with people's current financial situation four major numbers, what's coming in, what's going out, what's your total debt, what's your cash flow. That's our starting point. And what I've added into my practice when I'm coaching clients that are at that beginning point where I would put convertible term as one of the first conversations that I'm having, or creating that opportunity to have that conversation. And I think
It's not term versus whole life, just like it's not HELOC versus
correct.
mortgage. Usually it ends up being term and whole life. These 2 are not competing with each other, they're complementary.
Yes. So most people I work with have this huge block in front of them, which is the debt. And then they're searching for different strategies. So that could be velocity banking, could be infinite banking. Maybe they're trying to invest, make money, then pay off debt.
In some
And
cases,
there's
they're just looking for a get out of jail free card.
correct. Maybe they're even looking at bankruptcy, debt restructure, debt settlements. They're just
Mm,
looking for help. In my practice, what I'm looking at is folks that are at least positive cash flow, even as little as $300 to $500 a month or less, right around this range. I already know when it comes to whole life insurance and when it comes to investing that these are going to be later conversations. And if I'm dealing with someone that has around this cash flow amount, they most likely have anywhere from 30 to 50% of their income going to debt payments. That's one of the first areas. And from a business standpoint, if someone is generating income through a business, then the next big area is probably taxes, where we can essentially redirect cash flow. And in my practice, as you've seen on my YouTube, my goal often, a lot of my case studies have to do with redirecting cash flow, recapturing cash flow, or creating more cash flow by using different debt elimination strategies. And then we take that cash flow and throw it towards more debt until we get to a very healthy cash flow position. I like to be around 1,500, 1,000 or more, 1,000, 1,500 or more conservatively to now have the conversation about whole life, being able to save money in bigger bulks. But I've now been like taking more steps back to say, how can I serve that person in the $300 to $500 cash flow range or less, business owner or not a business owner, and start showing them the power of life insurance, specifically convertible term insurance, how we can get you something and making it worth their while, showing them how valuable it is to go down in cash flow slightly. So if it's a $50 a month term payment or a $75 a month or even a $100 a month convertible term payment, to actually go down in cash flow and not send all of your cash flow toward debt elimination because of all of these living benefits that you can obtain with convertible term, and then the long-term opportunity to convert that to a permanent asset, which can then have 20 other uses later on. That's where I'm at right now, where I'm like, I'm saying part of our four major numbers discussion, we're also having a discussion on how much insurance do you have, just
Mhm,
like how much car insurance do you pay, and how much homeowners
mhm.
insurance, and how much health insurance, how much coverage do you have on your life if you lose your life in the process of doing these financial strategies that you're looking to implement. What happens if you get chronically ill, terminally ill, or you pass away too soon to receive the full fruit of your financial strategy? There's this massive death benefit that
Or what if you become uninsurable?
Or what if
Maybe
you become
maybe I have
uninsurable
a bout
altogether?
with cancer and I survive, I get back to work, but now I can no longer get life insurance, so now whole life insurance and infinite banking are closed off to me. Or maybe I'm just less healthy than I once was, so now when I apply, I get a
Correct.
standard rate or a rated policy instead of that preferred plus rating I would have gotten. Convertible term locks in your insurability at your current health rating. It gives you a guaranteed purchase option for the future, and it secures your full human life value. Human life value is something that most people are not aware of. If you ask them what their house is worth, they probably have a rough idea what their house is worth, what their car
Mhm.
is worth. What is your life worth from an economic perspective?
Yeah.
That's really important. If you die, what is the financial loss to your family, to your children, to your spouse? Most people don't even know that. And I think, Denzel, one of the most valuable things we can do as agents is simply to tell our clients and our prospects what their human life value is because they do not know. And then
Mhm.
explain to them why it's important to secure your full human life value. You fully insure your house, you fully insure your car.
Yep.
Don't you think you should fully insure your life? And I'm not talking about whole life insurance. We're just talking about term here. So what you're doing is securing your future net worth. It's a three-step process. Step one is you secure your full human life value with convertible term. Let's just say $3 million. You take out a $3 million convertible term. And by the way, I did a whole video. There's a whole bunch of nuance around what type of convertible term you're getting. So understand, we're talking about very specific policies, not just any convertible term. There's a lot of nuance to that, which we can't get into in this video. Next, you make it permanent by converting it. So now that death benefit is permanent, it will be paid out. And then step three is eventually that death benefit becomes liquid and available to you as it converts to cash value. So it's a three-step process, but step one, you already won the game. When you take out a $3 million convertible term policy, you know you're going to be worth 3 million at some point in the future. You already won. The result is already locked in.
Let me ask you, is that just an example you're giving 3 million, or is that a number you start with how
Just an
much?
example. What's your human life value? Right? Instead of saying, how much death benefit do I need? Back up a step. Don't reinvent the wheel. The experts at determining your human life value is not you, it's not me, it's not Denzel Rodriguez, it's the actuaries at the life insurance company. This is what they do for a living. They're professionals. So don't reinvent the wheel. Let them tell you. You talk with me, and I will tell you, based on the insurance carrier, what your human life value is. And it's probably a larger number than you think. And the cost for acquiring it is probably less than you think. Convertible term is not expensive.
I agree. I just wrote one on my older sister, and we were able to get 750,000 under $100 a month. It was like 89, 90. Don't want to give away her age, but later 30s. That's really good. And this is someone that has had some health challenges. And so she was able to improve her health. And I have clients that do this as well, where they're like, Denzel, I'm overweight. I have this issue. I have that. And what I've learned, which is really interesting in the health space, having the conversation about life insurance could potentially be a motivating factor for that person to start eating better, exercising more, wanting to get healthier so that they can access these financial assets that can not only change their life, but improve the next generation and fulfill
Absolutely.
on leaving an inheritance for their children's children. Like, I
Absolutely.
never knew talking about life insurance would be a motivating factor for someone to improve their health.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen
So
it
be some kind of cool collaborations down the line, us collaborating with some
with
personal
health
trainers and
insurance.
some
Yes.
health influencers out there to be like, hey, you might
Absolutely.
want to use this as a talking point because we're seeing people genuinely improving their health just so that they can get the best rating so that can become insurable. So those of
And
you that may have applied for life insurance and you got a poor rating or you're uninsurable, don't give up. You could go on a 30, 90-day cleanse, body reset, a fast, and retest your blood markers over a short period of time, not that long, and get a better health rating,
And by the
or at the
way,
very least become insurable.
with convertible terms, so you could, let's say you get the standard rate today, you put that policy in force, and then you lose 30 pounds, you can get that rate improved without risking your current policy. So if
Well,
you say, I want to
oh,
lose 30 pounds and then apply, I say, no, let's put the policy in force today. So now we have that locked in so you can't get any worse. And then once you've lost the weight, you've quit smoking, you've gotten past your type 2 diabetes or whatever, then we can get a rate improvement, and now we're doing it without the risk of you being declined. Because even if they find out you have cancer at that point, they can't change what they've already given you, but they can get it improved, right?
correct. I just learned about that a couple months ago, and I've been in the business almost 7 years now. And this applies to
Wow.
whole life policies as well.
Yep.
If you got a standard rating and you want to retest, my mentor Steve Parisi was telling me he had a client go through underwriting again after a few years of having the policy, and his cash value jumped because he was able to get a better rating, even though he was older. Must have been like 4 years after putting the policy in place. So I was like,
Yep.
you tell me this now after so many years. I'm like, I got to go through all my client lists and just see if anyone got a poor
Absolutely.
rating,
I'm
in the
always
past.
looking at it. We just did that recently. We just applied for improvement. A guy got the standard rating and he lost 60 pounds
Oh,
and
wow. That's
just
awesome.
went through the application to get him approved and get him another new policy. Probably the most common you see there is people who quit smoking. So they get approved with the tobacco rating. And then after they quit smoking and it's been at least 12 months, depends on the carrier, then you can apply, get that rating removed.
When it comes to smokers, do you know what the time is? It 5 years or 10 years?
It depends on the insurance company. So
Okay.
usually after 12 months, you can get standard non-tobacco.
Oh, wow.
And then after 2 to 5 years, you could get a preferred non-tobacco rating after it's been long enough. But some carriers are different. In fact, I have my preferred carrier. I've gone with an alternate carrier who's still really good more than once because they're a little more lenient with smoking. So I have people who smoked casually somewhat recently and they were a bit more lenient on that. So we went with that carrier because they were going to give them a preferred rating, whereas my preferred carrier will only give them standard. There's a lot of nuance there. I did a video on it, which I'll post. There's so many nuances to convertible term. People who don't understand life insurance, whether they be critics or just laymen, they just see $1 million worth of term. There's so much nuance even to term. As an example, we talk about convertible term. The question is, what's it convertible to? If it's not convertible to a competitive whole life product, then that conversion privilege is not worth much. So it has
Correct.
to be with the right agent who really
Right
knows what
company.
he's doing. It has to be with the right company. And that means not just a carrier that has a competitive whole life product, but a carrier that does not restrict conversions. There are
Correct.
carriers that sell convertible term life insurance policies and have great whole life policies, but I would not recommend doing convertible term with them because if and when you go to convert it, they don't allow you to design it the way we would typically design it. So you got to be
Right.
careful.
Because
You
of
got to be
the,
working with an agent who really knows all of these nuances. Okay.
yeah, from your experience, is there your preferred companies where you're like,
Yes.
these are my favorite?
Yeah, I don't ever name specific insurance companies for a lot of very good reasons, but I'll say there is one, in my opinion, that is the best for convertible term. But there's a handful that are really good, meaning they have a competitive whole life product and they don't limit the conversion. So when you convert it, you can convert it to a whole life product designed any way that you want. But there's even some nuance there because you might have $2 million of convertible term and think I can convert that to a $2 million whole life product. Not the way we design it, because the
Correct.
way we design it, the total underwriting amount is going to be more than 2 million, even if the starting death benefit is 2 million, because that death benefit grows over time. So the
Correct.
insurance carrier is going to underwrite you for more than 2 million. So there's even more nuance there. What about the living benefits, the chronic illness rider, things like that? What length of term? 10-year, 15-year, 20-year, 30-year? You can ladder term policies. What would be the reason for doing that? Do you want to stick on a child term rider? disability waiver premium, or a guaranteed purchase option. There's so many nuances even to term policies. And when we speak with a client, you don't have to know all these complexities yourself. We'll handle them, but just be aware that there's a lot of pitfalls and mines that we are navigating on our side where you as a client are not going to see that, but I want you to be aware of the value that we're providing. Because I see, unfortunately, you've probably seen this yourself where you'll go talk to a client, they already have a financial advisor, and they have more money in assets under management with that advisor than they have in total death benefit. That's ridiculous.
That's
That is
off.
totally irresponsible, where you have $1,000,000 in assets under management with this financial advisor and just a dinky little $500,000 term policy. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous.
And the reality is, for the vast majority of average American income salaries, 80 to 100K or less, when you look at their portfolios that are maybe two, three, 400,000, and they're in their mid 50s, approaching retirement, them being able to get double, triple that in death benefit for, as you mentioned earlier, for not as much as you think, that is a very well balanced portfolio because now, if those dollars were in taxable vehicles or not, the kids don't have to sell those assets
Right.
to take care of things after death. They can just use a tax free income death benefit to handle everything, keep the assets, allow them to keep multiplying, and then use it as it was intended for, as income, not
Right.
necessarily to cover unexpected
To
large,
liquidate.
correct, expenses at that
Yeah.
point.
It's harkening back to a previous conversation that we had, Denzel, is having that life insurance in place allows you to leave your investments alone and let them keep earning for you. These financial advisors should be working with us rather than fighting against us. They don't seem to realize that when you have your clients properly insured with life insurance and maybe long-term care or disability or critical insurance, it protects those assets under management. So your clients don't
Yep.
have to raid those when, it's not an if, it's a when
Right.
some negative financial event happens. You and I both know, Denzel, we've been in the business long enough. Something negative will happen. Over the next 10
Yeah.
years, some unexpected negative event will happen, and you'll all of a sudden need 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 at the drop of that. It will happen. It will happen.
I would argue that financial advisors that would team up with us or collaborate with us in the long term will make more money in their practice, less work. They'll make more one and their money will be more passive if you've got assets under management that people are not liquidating in large chunks to handle these other things. Whereas insurance can handle those other unexpected things, your clients are going to keep their money with you longer throughout retirement, especially as people living much longer now. A lot of financial advisors are only planning to retirement. They're not having the conversation of sequencing of returns and distribution
Distribution.
rate, and they're just not. Life insurance is a great way for their clients to hold on to their assets, and that's more money in your pocket because those are the management fees. And you're able to hold those assets and make more money for your clients because your client's not going to be concerned about pulling large amounts out for certain things. With the non-traditional way of getting material out there now via YouTube and social media, that the customers are being their own advocates for when they're in that conversation with their advisor, they're informing them of what they want, and the advisor now has to serve, not just
Yeah,
push
and
their own agenda.
yeah, and I love that word, serve, Denzel. I've talked about this with my own health challenges. There are so many people who want to help me, Denzel. They want to help me. Well, that's being very condescending and insulting to that person. Don't seek to help people. Now you're being arrogant, you're being condescending. Seek to serve people, which means you have to let that person tell you how they want to be served. You have to let that person be the master and you be the servant. Now, still do right by them. You can tell them no, that's fine. But at the end of the day, you have to have a certain degree of humility. You have to really want to be of service. Otherwise, you're just being condescending. When you have health challenges like I do, you attract some of the worst Pharisees out there who what they want to do is take advantage of your weakness in order to virtue signal at your expense. And this is what they think of as helping you. And it's incredibly disgusting.